It's strange how a whole life can shift in under 5 seconds. Not crash, not explode, just tilt. Quietly, permanently. I wasn't even supposed to be home. It was 6:32 a.m. when I stepped inside. The sun hadn't fully come up yet, just a silver haze behind the kitchen blinds. Our porch light was still glowing like a forgotten detail. The hallway still smelled faintly of laundry and that lemon cleaner Leslie liked. If anyone had looked at that moment from the outside, they'd have thought everything was fine. Ordinary. Safe. Except it wasn't. I was only home because I'd missed my train. I'd rushed the morning, overslept my alarm, scrambled through the station parking lot, only to watch the 6:10 roll away without me. I thought, screw it. I'll head back, grab breakfast, maybe even get an hour of work in from home before the 7:45. I remember being annoyed, not angry, just that low-burn frustration you get when the day starts sideways. That frustration evaporated the second I stepped through the front door and saw her, Leslie, my wife, in our hallway, standing maybe 12 feet away. She hadn't heard me come in. She was facing slightly to the side, one hand holding the belt of a tan trench coat she hadn't tied. Her legs were bare. The edge of a pale silk nightgown peeked out from underneath. She wasn't wearing slippers, just standing there in the spot where we usually dumped our shoes and jackets, as if frozen mid-thought. Opposite her was a man, early 40s maybe, tall, clean-cut, light brown hair, soft beard. His coat was open, his shirt untucked slightly like he'd been relaxing. No shoes. He stood holding a black briefcase, the handle pinched lightly between his fingers, like he wasn't sure whether to set it down again or bolt. That's when Leslie turned and saw me. Her face didn't change. Not really. Her eyes widened just a little, but she didn't flinch, didn't panic. She didn't look like someone who'd just been caught. She looked like someone calculating which version of the truth would cause the least trouble. "Jason," she said evenly, voice quiet but composed. "This is Carter. He's a colleague. From the Baltimore project." She didn't step toward me. Didn't move at all, actually. Just said it like we were in the middle of a boring Tuesday meeting. Her free hand touched the lapel of her coat. "His car broke down last night, and with the storm, all the hotels were booked or too far out of the way. I told him he could crash here, just for the night." Carter gave me a stiff, polite smile, the kind you'd give a neighbor you accidentally parked behind. "Sorry for the early surprise," he said, voice low and pleasant, like he'd rehearsed it in case I walked in. I didn't respond. I don't even know what face I was making. All I remember is my heartbeat jumping to the back of my tongue. Not because I saw something shocking. No, it was the opposite. It was how normal they both looked. How rehearsed. Leslie continued, nodding toward the kitchen. "We were just grabbing some coffee before I dropped him off. Nothing happened." 3 words. That was it. Nothing happened. I looked past her shoulder into the kitchen. There were 2 wine glasses on the island. One had a faint red ring on the rim, her lipstick. There was a bottle of Pinot half-finished, the cork lazily shoved back in. The cutting board still had crumbs from that seedy cracker bread she only brought out when guests were over. There was even one of those linen napkins we used when we had company, the ones that needed ironing. She hated ironing, and it was 6:30 in the morning. I was supposed to believe they stayed up sipping wine, eating crackers, and talking about supply chain issues until sunrise? I still didn't say anything. Carter adjusted the strap of his bag, offered a nod. "I'll just, head out. Thanks again, Leslie." Really. She didn't say anything, just watched him walk past her. He slipped his shoes on by the door, deliberately avoiding looking at me, and exited through the side hallway, the one that leads past the garage. Not the front door. Not even the living room. He knew exactly where to go. When the door shut behind him, Leslie sighed and walked down the hall toward the guest bathroom without another word. I watched the hem of her coat sway behind her. She didn't try to explain again. Didn't say anything about how weird this must have looked, or why she didn't call me to let me know a stranger was sleeping over in our house. She just disappeared into the bathroom and closed the door. I stood there, still wearing my coat, my keys still in my hand, the light from the kitchen glinting off the steel ring. I could hear the water running a moment later. Not the shower, just the faucet. Short bursts, like she was rinsing something off. Her face, maybe, or like she needed the noise. I stared at the wine glasses again. Something broke in me then. Not like a snap, more like a quiet undoing. The kind that starts with a tug and then unravels the whole fabric. I took off my coat, hung it on the hook by the stairs, walked into the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking slightly, and I didn't realize it until I heard the glass clink against the counter. I didn't cry, didn't shout. My mind wasn't racing, it was slowing down. That's what scared me the most. The calm, the way everything suddenly made sense. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't just a colleague crashing at our place. This was something that had already been happening. Something old, familiar, planned. I could see it in the ease of her posture, the way he knew to leave quietly, the fact that the wine glasses were washed and reused instead of grabbing clean ones. I could see it in how she hadn't looked surprised, just caught off schedule. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. I had no evidence, no photos, no confessions, and still I knew. And more than that, I knew there was no point in asking. Because if someone can lie to your face that smoothly, they're not going to stop just because you ask better. I opened my eyes, took another sip of water, and listened to the silence stretching through the house. Leslie eventually walked out of the bathroom wearing leggings and a hoodie, like it was any other work-from-home morning. Her hair was still damp. She didn't look at me, just walked over to the sink, rinsed a coffee cup and said, "You're up early." I watched her pour her coffee and stir in almond milk. Her hand didn't shake. "I missed my train," I said, voice flat, barely audible. She nodded like that explained everything. "That happens." Then she grabbed her phone off the island, tapped something, and walked into the living room like I wasn't even there. And just like that, it was over. Not the marriage. Not yet. But something else. Some thread that had been holding us together, some invisible trust or faith or hope, snapped. Quietly, like a hairline fracture finally giving way after months of pressure. I set my glass down, walked upstairs and changed clothes. I didn't rush. I didn't even look in the mirror. As I left again to catch the next train, I paused by the front door. The house behind me looked exactly the same as it did an hour earlier. But nothing in it felt real anymore. The train ride into the city was a blur. I don't remember the stops. Don't remember the faces of the other commuters. I don't even remember getting coffee at the corner kiosk outside my building. But there it was in my hand, lukewarm and untouched by noon. I sat at my desk, staring at emails, reading the same sentences over and over, but nothing stuck. I kept minimizing the screen, reopening it, pretending to work because pretending was easier than dealing with the looping slideshow in my head. Her face, his shoes by the door, the red lipstick stain on the rim of the wine glass. Everything about that morning should have made me angry, furious even, but I felt suspended, like I was watching someone else's life from across a pane of glass. Nothing could touch me, but everything kept playing on repeat. I didn't confront her. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even open the group chat with our friends, afraid I might see her name, her replies, anything that might suggest this was just another day in a life that had already split open. Instead, I thought back, month by month, pattern by pattern. The odd had started long before this morning. I just hadn't been willing to see it. I think it started back in October. That's when Leslie suddenly got really into fitness. Out of nowhere. She'd always done Pilates or gone on long weekend walks, but now it was late-night gym sessions and 24-hour boutique studios and hot yoga with resistance that somehow started at 8:45 p.m. I remember the first time she came home from one of those workouts, drenched in sweat, but her hair too neat, her makeup too perfect. She said the instructor was strict about appearance, even in cool-downs. I nodded, didn't question it. I wanted to be supportive, but the workouts always ran late, and she was always the last one out. Parking lot was pitch black, she'd say. Sometimes she'd joke about being the only one without a luxury car there. Then there were her work-from-home days. She started having more of those in November. At first, it made sense: client meetings, Zoom presentations, internal strategy calls. But she was always on mute when I passed the office. Or worse, the door would be shut. Not locked, but never open. Like the room had become some kind of private world I wasn't invited into anymore. I used to bring her coffee while she worked. A little thing we did. I'd leave it by the keyboard. She'd smile, squeeze my hand. That stopped too. The last time I brought her a cup, I remember her waving me off without even looking up. In a meeting, she'd snapped. No eye contact. Just a hand flick and the cold click of her wireless mouse. She didn't drink that coffee. I found it later, full, cold, untouched. Then there was the perfume. Leslie has always worn a light floral scent. Not overpowering. Just this soft, citrusy tone I'd come to associate with her being near. But sometime around December, it changed. It was sharper, smokier, almost masculine. I asked her about it one night in passing. New bottle? And she laughed it off, said it was a free sample. One of those marketing things at the gym, she said. They hand them out like candy. But she kept wearing it. Not every day, but on certain days. Days she worked from home. Or days she went to her late yoga class. Days that, when I really thought about it, were always followed by her being a little too tired. A little too detached. I remember once, back in January, I suggested we go out. It was a Friday night, and she had just come back from the studio. I thought it'd be nice to grab sushi, maybe just sit and talk like we used to, but she brushed it off. I already ate, she said. She didn't even ask what I wanted. Just pulled off her hoodie, grabbed a water bottle, and disappeared upstairs. I stood in the kitchen that night eating cereal out of the box. The signs were everywhere, and yet I kept rationalizing them, telling myself this was stress, seasonal blues, the natural ebb and flow of marriage, that I was just being paranoid, jealous, controlling, that if I asked too many questions, I'd be the one ruining things. Then there were the photos, or more accurately, the lack of them. She used to post us all the time. Little snaps *TS, brunches, weekend drives. Dumb memes she said reminded her of me. But around Christmas, that stopped too. I only noticed when I checked her profile to show a friend a vacation pic from 2 summers ago. All the old ones were gone. No more anniversary weekend in Vermont. No more this one captions under candid *TS of me doing dishes. Not even the dog we fostered for a week last spring. It had all vanished. When I asked her about it, casually while we were in bed, she said she was rebranding. I blinked. Rebranding? Yeah, she'd said, scrolling through something on her phone. The whole relationship aesthetic thing felt too curated. It's not really me anymore. She said it like she was deleting filters, not memories. I should have known then. I should have pressed. But I didn't, because asking the right question means you have to hear the wrong answer. Then there was the work thing. About a month ago, I surprised her at the office. She'd forgotten her badge, and they wouldn't let her into her building without it. I was already downtown, so I thought, why not be the good husband, swing by, save her the trip? Her assistant met me in the lobby. Nice girl. Young. Clearly new. Hi. I think she's working from home today, she said, tapping her keyboard. She hasn't come in the past 2 days. I laughed awkwardly. You sure? She told me she had a full slate of meetings here. The girl blinked. Oh, maybe I'm confused. She wasn't, but I let it slide. Told myself maybe Leslie was in a meeting offsite. Or maybe she had mentioned a schedule change and I'd just forgotten. Lies. All of them. Little paper cuts I kept ignoring until the bleeding became too obvious to hide. This morning wasn't the first red flag. It was the last one in a parade of 100 that I'd been too afraid to see. That's the part that gets me now. Not the betrayal. Not the man in my hallway. But how much of myself I gave up just to maintain a version of reality that made me feel safe. At lunch, I sat alone in the company break room, staring at my sandwich like it might answer something for me. I felt hollow, like I'd been emptied out and filled with wet cement. Not pain, just weight. One of the interns tried to talk to me, some question about blueprints and zoning variances. I nodded through it. I think I said, circle back later. But honestly, I have no clue what I said. I spent the rest of the day pretending to be human, typing emails, clicking tabs, nodding through meetings I didn't hear a word of. By 5:30, I was walking out of the building with my mind made up. Not about Leslie, not yet, but about needing to know. Really know, not guess, not assume, not fill in blanks with instinct and rage. I had installed a home security system last summer. It was supposed to be for porch pirates and raccoons, not this. But during the renovation, we'd set up 3 small indoor cameras. One in the kitchen, one near the hallway entrance, one pointing toward the front door. It was all backed up to a cloud server. I'd never looked at the footage before. I never had a reason to, until now. That night, I left the office early. Told my manager I had a personal matter to attend to. She nodded sympathetically. She'd noticed the shadows under my eyes, the new tension in my jaw. I think she thought it was something else, burnout maybe, deadlines. I didn't correct her. On the train home, I barely looked out the window. My mind had become a projector, replaying months of silence in full color. Every late workout, every unanswered question, every don't wait up, and it's just work, now felt like a breadcrumb in a trail I hadn't known I was following. When I finally walked through the front door that night, the hallway looked exactly the same. Still smelled faintly of her perfume. Still felt like mine. But not for long. I didn't eat dinner that night. I wasn't hungry. Not in the physical sense. My body felt wired and exhausted at the same time. Like I'd been running on adrenaline for so long it had just become my new resting state. My stomach was hollow, but food felt irrelevant. Answers, that's what I wanted. Leslie was in the kitchen when I got home. She greeted me like nothing had happened that morning. Just a casual hey, followed by a question about leftovers, chicken or pasta. She stood there, barefoot, hair in a bun, holding a wine glass like it was any other Tuesday. There wasn't even a crack in her voice. No awkward glance. No hesitance. I lied and said I'd eaten already. Long day? She asked, sipping her wine. Yeah, I said, shrugging off my coat. Meetings. Same. She smiled. People are exhausting lately. I nodded, pretending I agreed. She turned back to the stove, humming to herself, stirring something in a pan. A normal moment. A fake moment. Something from a show we both weren't watching anymore. I stood there for a second longer, then said I was going to lie down. She didn't ask questions. Once upstairs, I closed the bedroom door, sat on the edge of the bed, and pulled out my laptop. My palms were sweating. I opened the security app we'd installed last year, the one we barely used after setting it up. It was mostly for show. Something Leslie insisted on when there were reports of package thefts in our neighborhood. It's better safe than sorry, she had said. Besides, it makes the house feel smarter. Smarter. I stared at the loading icon like it might blink out and save me from what I was about to see. The interface was basic, motion detection logs, camera feeds, cloud storage. The cameras had been synced to record whenever they detected movement in certain zones. The front door, the hallway near the stairs, and the open layout of the kitchen. I navigated to the date, this morning. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. There it was, the motion log from 12:42 a.m. I clicked it. The kitchen camera lit up. Grainy night vision. The kind of footage you see in documentaries when they talk about moments before the collapse. First, it was just her, Leslie, standing at the island, barefoot, pouring wine. She was wearing that same silk nightgown, the one she only wore on special occasions. Her hair was up. She looked happy, comfortable, like someone winding down after a long day but not alone. A second later, he entered the frame. Carter, the man from the hallway. No briefcase now, just a fitted dress shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He looked like he belonged there. That's what hit me first, how normal it looked. How domestic. He said something, no audio, but she laughed. Then he touched her arm. Lightly. Not an accident. Not a joke. Just familiarity. I clicked forward to the next clip. 12:47 a.m. They were at the kitchen island now, sitting, talking, her hand resting on her chin, elbow on the counter, that posture she used when she was really into a conversation. I knew that look. I used to be on the receiving end of it. Next clip. 1:02 a.m. They were standing by the door. I held my breath. She reached up, not to push him away, not to open the door, but to place both hands on his chest. Gently, like she was steadying herself, like she didn't want him to leave. And then it happened. He leaned in. She didn't flinch. Their lips met. Not a peck. Not a stumble. A kiss. Long, familiar. Confident. My whole body went still. Even my heartbeat seemed to stop. I clicked pause. Rewound. Watched it again just to be sure. As if maybe I'd misread it. Maybe she turned her head at the last second. Maybe he kissed her cheek. But no. It was what it was. I clicked forward again. She was laughing now. Opening the door wide. Letting him inside. Like this was just routine. Like he'd been here before. The footage ended at 1:13 a.m. I sat there, staring at the still frame. Her smile frozen. His coat hanging over the stair rail. A glass of wine in her hand. There was no point pretending anymore. This wasn't some colleague crashing on our couch. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't just one mistake. This was a pattern. A rhythm. A second life I'd been too trusting or too blind to see. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was something colder. Certainty. I watched her in that video. How easily she moved through the house. How comfortable she was in the lie. And something inside me shut off. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to demand an apology. I didn't even want answers. I just wanted to be done. I scrolled back through the footage. Saw the way she cleaned up the glasses around 5:30. Saw her pacing by the window at 6 o'clock, probably waiting for him to leave before I got home. She looked anxious then, not because she regretted anything, but because she'd been caught off guard. The rest of the day made sense now. The calm, the shrug. She wasn't sorry. She was just disappointed that the timing hadn't gone her way. I printed a *T of the video frame, the one where they kissed by the door. I didn't zoom in or add circles or arrows. Just printed it as it was. Quiet. Obvious. I slid the paper into a manila folder, walked downstairs, and placed it under her favorite coffee mug on the kitchen table. The one with Boss Lady written on it in pink cursive. The one I bought for her 2 Christmases ago when she got promoted. She was still cleaning up from dinner, humming something soft under her breath. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I walked past her, up the stairs and packed a bag. Not everything, just what I needed. 2 days' worth of clothes, toothbrush, my passport, the small fireproof lockbox from the safe with our important documents, which I now realized would only matter to me going forward. When I zipped up the suitcase, it didn't feel like an ending. Felt like shedding skin. I grabbed my phone, stepped into the guest bedroom, the one she never used, and booked a hotel downtown for 3 nights. Then I messaged my office and said I'd be working remotely for the rest of the week. No explanation. Just a note that I was unavailable for in-person meetings. I went back downstairs one last time. She was on the couch now, scrolling through her phone, blanket draped over her legs like it was just another evening. She didn't even look up when I walked past. I paused by the door. "Hey," I said. She looked up. "Yeah. I'm heading out for a few days." She blinked. "What? Where?" "Just need some space," I said. "A beat." She tilted her head. "Is this about this morning?" I stared at her. Not angrily. Not even with disappointment. Just a long look. "No," I said. "This is about everything." She didn't answer. Didn't ask more. Didn't chase me out the door. I stepped outside into the cold, the night air biting at my skin. I didn't turn around. Didn't look back at the house we'd lived in for 8 years. The porch light was still on. The same light that had guided me home for so long. Now it felt like it was shining for someone else. I slid into my car, turned the ignition, and pulled away in silence. The street was quiet. My phone stayed in my pocket. And as I drove toward a hotel I didn't even think I'd ever need, a strange thought crossed my mind. Not of endings, or heartbreak, or betrayal. Just this. I don't think I ever really knew her. Not the version I saw on that footage. And maybe, just maybe, she never really knew me either. The hotel room smelled like citrus and cold air. Not the fresh kind, the artificial kind that came out of a vent somewhere above the minibar. The lighting was too yellow. The sheets were stiff. Everything looked clean enough, untouched, staged. It wasn't home. But at least it was mine for now. That first night I didn't sleep. I just sat in the corner chair by the window, staring down at the city below. Everything moved like normal. Cars blinking through intersections, streetlights clicking on and off, people out walking their dogs or jogging like nothing in their world had shifted. I watched them like they were actors in a play I had already walked out of. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even feel heartbreak the way I always imagined I would. What I felt was thinner, duller, like someone had poured water over a fire I didn't even realize had been burning out for months. I had no desire to chase Leslie for an explanation. The footage had taken care of that. There was no ambiguous text thread, no overheard phone call I could misinterpret. No room for denial or negotiation. It had happened, and it wasn't an accident. It was a choice, a series of them, over time, carefully made and carefully concealed. I woke up the next morning with my mouth dry and my mind already racing. If this was ending, and it was, I needed to make sure I left it with my dignity intact. I didn't want a war. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clean, quiet, final. So I started there. I logged into our bank accounts from my laptop. I'd set them up years ago, merged, organized, labeled. I knew every password, every folder. Leslie never liked handling money. She said it stressed her out. So I'd done it all. Bills, credit, investments. I never minded. I liked the order of it. The trust in it. Now, that trust felt like a wee *p*n I'd handed her. I started small. First, I separated my direct deposit. Easy enough. Just a few clicks on my company portal, rerouting all future paychecks into a new account I'd opened an hour earlier. Then I canceled the joint credit cards. Not because I thought she'd do anything reckless, though I didn't know anymore, but because I couldn't stand the idea of buying groceries on the same account she used to pay for hotel rooms or shared bottles of wine. Next came the vault. During our home renovation, I'd set up a private digital vault, a cloud-secured archive with all our important paperwork, house deed, insurance policies, birth certificates, passports, marriage license. At the time, it was just a backup in case of a flood or fire. Now, it was the roadmap to my escape. I downloaded every file that had my name on it. Not ours, not hers, just mine. I didn't delete anything. I didn't touch her documents. I just removed myself from the shared space, like slipping out of a photograph without disturbing the frame. Around noon, I called our accountant. He sounded surprised to hear from me. "Jason, everything all right?" "Just doing some financial housekeeping," I said, keeping my tone even. "I'll be sending over some updates to my portfolio. I'll be managing it independently moving forward." He paused. "Understood. Should I inform Leslie?" "No," I said. "This is just on my end." He didn't ask any more questions. When I hung up, I felt a little clearer. Not better, but focused. I took a walk down the block, stopped at a cafe, and ordered coffee I didn't finish. The city looked the same. Nothing had changed except me, and her, and us. The next few days followed the same rhythm. Precise, deliberate, controlled. I visited our storage unit and pulled the things I cared about. My grandfather's toolbox, a box of photos from college, and a first edition copy of Dune Leslie had never read but always insisted we keep in the living room for show. I shipped those to a friend's place. Someone who didn't ask questions but understood when I said, "It's time." Then I called the lawyer. She was calm, professional, the kind of woman who used clipped sentences and silent pauses like punctuation. I told her I wanted the process to be clean. I didn't want to fight over furniture. I didn't want to dissect every object we owned and assign it a battle. "I don't want the house," I said. "It's just bricks." She asked me twice if I was sure. I told her yes. There was a time I might have clung to that house. We'd painted every wall, argued over light fixtures, installed floating shelves that never floated quite right. It had been the stage of so many firsts. Anniversaries, repairs, holidays, small joys. But now it felt like a tomb filled with things that only mattered to one of us. I signed the documents the next morning. Not a full divorce yet, just the property transfer. The house would legally belong to her. Mortgage, taxes, maintenance, all of it. My name, erased from the deed. I emailed it to her while she was probably still asleep. No note, no explanations. Just a scanned file with the subject line. Completed. 2 hours later, I got a reply. Leslie, you didn't have to do this. Can we please talk? I stared at the message, then deleted it. I didn't want to talk. Not anymore. She'd had months to talk. She'd chosen silence. Later that day, I drove back to the neighborhood. Parked a block away. Not to spy. Not to stir anything. I just wanted to see the house one last time before I let it vanish behind me. The porch light was on even in the afternoon. The blinds were shut. The mailbox was full. A pair of packages sat on the stoop. One had my name on it. I let it stay there. As I sat in my car, I thought about the wedding photos on the wall inside. The ones she hadn't taken down yet. I imagined them still hanging in their frames, next to the sofa where she kissed another man. I pictured the wine glasses she hadn't washed. The way she'd touched his chest at the door. None of it hurt the way I thought it would. It just felt distant, like I was remembering someone else's life. That evening, I checked into a new place. A short-term rental in a quiet part of town. Small kitchen, clean bathroom, a single window with a view of the alley. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet. And quiet, for the first time in months, felt like peace. The next morning, I set up a new phone plan. New number. Same contacts minus hers. I copied my photos, wiped the old phone clean, and dropped it into a drawer I'd probably never open again. That afternoon, the lawyer sent a follow-up. Attorney, Jason, house transfer finalized. Her signature filed. All obligations now under her name. I stared at the screen. That was it. No more house. No more bills. No more shared anything. I had made my exit. The silent kind. No slammed doors. No screaming matches. Just a soft, invisible retreat. Like pulling the last thread from a worn-out sweater and letting it unravel on its own. For years, I thought love was built on grand gestures. Surprises. Sacrifices. Dramatic declarations. But now I saw that endings didn't need noise. They didn't even need witnesses. Sometimes, the most honest thing you can do is walk away without a word. I didn't leave her with revenge. I didn't torch the past. I didn't even take the dog, though I probably could have. She hated walking him in the rain. What I left her with was exactly what she had fought to control. The house, the address, the shell of what we built. But I took what mattered. My name. My time. My silence. It had been 3 weeks since I left. 23 days to be exact. The weather had shifted in that time. Spring creeping in around the edges of the buildings, softening the wind, loosening the ground. It rained more often now. That soft kind of rain you can smell before it starts. My days had taken on a new rhythm. Wake up before the sun. Make coffee. Go for a walk around the block. Read the news without really reading it. Reply to work emails. Zoom meetings. Break for lunch, usually something bland, whatever was easiest to heat up. Then more work. More silence. More hours that ended without event. At night, I left the windows open and fell asleep to the sound of traffic in the distance. It wasn't healing. It wasn't clarity. But it was space. And space, I was learning, was its own kind of medicine. I hadn't spoken to Leslie since that one short email reply. She hadn't tried again. No calls. No texts. No shows of regret or rage. Maybe she got the message. Maybe she didn't know what to say. Or maybe silence was easier for both of us. A mutual ceasefire where neither side had to pretend anymore. I thought I'd miss her. Some part of me expected the loneliness to hit hard, like a withdrawal. Late nights with no one to talk to, mornings without her presence across the table. But what I felt instead was a strange emptiness that wasn't painful. Just neutral. Like someone had removed a painting from a wall and left the outline behind. I filled my days with work. Projects I'd put off. Designs I'd shelved. I stayed up late refining details, redrawing drafts, sending proposals that impressed even my most cynical clients. One evening, my manager pinged me during a call and asked if I was free to join a last-minute event. Something with investors, high-profile, formal. I hesitated for maybe half a second. Then I said yes. It was a gala. One of those upscale architecture firm functions that felt half celebration, half auction. High ceilings, moody lighting, elegant strings playing in the corner. I wore the only tailored suit I still had, navy, clean, understated. The kind of outfit you could disappear in or stand out with depending on how you carried yourself. I didn't expect much from the night. Maybe some handshakes, some polite questions about design principles. What I didn't expect was to be pulled aside by the firm's creative director, a woman I'd worked with remotely for months but never met in person. "We've been watching your work," she said, her voice low, deliberate. "Your last 3 projects? Stunning. Focused. Fresh." I thanked her. Then came the real shock. "We'd like to bring you on as a full partner." I blinked. Sorry?" She smiled. "Not today, not tomorrow. But soon. We're restructuring. And you're the kind of quiet presence this place needs." I didn't know what to say. I shook her hand, still half convinced she was mistaking me for someone else. She wasn't. Someone snapped a photo later that night. Me standing beside her, the two of us mid-conversation, smiling faintly, nothing dramatic. Just a moment. I didn't even know it had been taken until the next day, when a colleague sent me a link. It was posted on the firm's public page, captioned, "Celebrating growth and future leadership. Congratulations to our soon-to-be partner, Jason Hale." That name hit me like a new identity. Jason Hale. No Jason and Leslie. No tags. No context. Just me. In the photo, I stood with my hands clasped calmly in front of me. No ring. No flash. Just confidence. Maybe even peace. And then the strangest thing happened. Leslie saw it. I don't know how, maybe a mutual connection, maybe she was still following the firm's page. Maybe someone sent it to her. But I knew she'd seen it because later that afternoon, I got a ping from one of those old social accounts we never fully shut down. The kind where your followers still included people from your real life. Leslie had clicked on the post. That's all it showed. Viewed by Leslie Hale. No message. No comment. Just a digital footprint. Curious, I checked her profile for the first time since leaving. It had changed again. Our old photos still gone. Her bio now said something vague. Building something new. No mention of marriage. No mention of me. I clicked through her grid, wondering if he'd show up. The other man. Carter. The colleague. The wineglass ghost. He didn't. But what I did see were new posts. Sunlit photos of her alone in cafes. Yoga poses by the lake. Inspirational quotes about forgiveness and evolution. All staged. All curated. She looked lighter. And yet, I couldn't tell if that was real or just performance. Then I noticed something else. Buried beneath her latest post, a black and white photo of her journaling, was a comment from one of her friends. "Love seeing you shine again. You're glowing." Leslie replied, "Trying. It's a process. But I'm finally letting go." Letting go. The phrase stuck with me. I wondered if she meant me or the guilt or the mess. Or maybe all of it. I closed the app. No anger. Just closure. But what stuck with me more than anything was how she had nothing to say after seeing that photo of me. Not a question. Not a snide remark. Not even a passive-aggressive, "Wow, you moved on fast." Just silence. And somehow that told me everything. Because silence can mean 100 things. Regret, pride, shame, relief. But in this case, I think it meant she finally understood. I wasn't coming back. I wasn't waiting. I wasn't playing the part of the wounded husband, haunting the ruins of our life. I had left the house, yes. Left the bank accounts, the routines, the shared calendar, the matching holiday mugs. But now, I had left her. That photo, just one candid image, One frame in a lifetime of frozen moments was the proof. Not to her, not even to the world, but to me, because I didn't look broken in it. I didn't look like someone escaping. I looked like someone who had already arrived. And for the first time since this whole thing began, since the wine glasses, the lipstick, the kiss on the footage, I believed it. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her version of the story. I didn't need to know why or how or whether he meant anything. Because none of that changed the truth. I was free. And silence, her silence, was my final answer. The house became officially hers 2 days after that photo went live. She received the title, the paperwork, everything she thought she'd won. But what came with it wasn't peace. It was bills, late fees, a citation for the rotting fence I'd warned her about last year. The attic had mold. The upstairs AC unit gave out. Taxes were due, and she didn't know who to call. I hadn't left her a punishment. Just the weight of a life she insisted she could manage without me. She got the walls, the roof, the keys. But what she really inherited was the version of our life that only she valued. Not the love. Not the meaning. Just the maintenance. We crossed paths one last time, months later, at a closed investor presentation. She wasn't on the list. I spotted her in the back, standing still. After the event, she waited by the lot. When I walked past, she finally said it. "I'm sorry. I didn't stop. It's all in your name now," I said. "There's nothing left for me there." I didn't look back. And she didn't follow.